Welcome to episode 4 of Against the Pods. We are delighted to be back in the studio, and today's guest has played 123 times in the Premier League, represented Spurs, Cardiff, Liverpool and Swansea, to name a few. He scored on his England debut in the game Ibrahimovic performed that mad bicycle kick, and he's represented Great Britain in the Olympics. We are absolutely buzzing to have him in the studio. It is Steven Caulker. Hello, mate.
Hello. How you doing?
We're very good. How are you?
All good, thank you.
Good. Before we crack into it, I've seen all of your podcasts that you've done on YouTube or listened to the audio. Why Against the Pods? Was it me constantly pestering you, or?
Might have played a part. For sure. No, I just, it's something that I believe in, and I support the good work that you guys are doing. I think the more people that are aware of the dangers of gambling, the better. Yeah. So I'm fully behind you.
Legend, mate.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
So, 16 years of age, you broke into Spurs under-18s after having trials with various London teams. But before we dig into that, I know you spoke on the shows about your upbringing and having a good upbringing, good family. But can you tell us a little bit about what you were like at secondary school and what secondary school looked like for you?
Well, I was naughty. If I'm honest with you, I was naughty. I'm not going to lie. I tell my son now, who's in secondary school, not to be like me, basically. Do as I say, not as I do. I was in and out of trouble for the first couple of years. I'm not going to lie. A lot of it actually started when I was playing, like penny up the wall. Yeah. So I started playing that from year 7. Right. Throw the pound at the ball closest to it, 1. And it was like, in order to get more money, I was like doing stuff I shouldn't have been doing. I was going to shops, I was picking up little bits and then coming out, filling up my boot bag with all the sweets and then taking them to school and selling them, So that kind of started to sort of show signs of the road I could have taken. Yeah. I was friends with the cool group, so there's always flirting with danger, in and amongst that. Yeah. But I'll tell you, like, right now, the thing that saved me from all that was football, for sure.
Really?
Football was just, I was training 6-7 days a week, so it was like, when those would then be going after school, smoking weed or doing whatever they did, it was like, I was like off the training, and on the weekend I had games and stuff like that. So as much as like I definitely towed the line and I was flirting with trouble, I kind of was protected by my football because I wanted that more than I wanted to look cool at school.
So you just said that, obviously, you playing the pound at the wall thing. Obviously, at the time, you probably thought that was a bit of fun, but like knowing what you know now, do you look back and you can connect that to the start of what was going to happen in the future?
Yeah, absolutely, because it was like the adrenaline rush it gave me at the time. I just thought it was fun.
For pound at the wall, adrenaline rush, yeah,
for sure.
Mad.
Well, if there's 4 or 5 of us are playing, you can take 4 or 5 pounds, and it's also bragging rights. It's also the laugh on the way home. Like that feeling what it gave me, which was rare because even back then I'd still lose my 9 times out of 10. So it was a buzz, and it was like at the time I thought fairly innocent. I wasn't gambling the sums that I eventually ended up gambling. It was just a bit of fun with the boys, break time, lunchtime, end of school. But the school didn't like it. They used to ban us from playing. So again, at the time, I'm thinking, what are these teachers on? Why are they so strict? But looking back now, I wish that I was one of them that took it on board and did nip it in the bud.
Yeah, pretty much left school, signed for Spurs at 16.
Yeah, I actually signed at 15. So
15.
15. I finally got scouted.
So that's year 11, isn't it?
It was end of. Yeah, it was either end of year 10 or start of year 11, one or the other. And that was the period there where I was like, okay, like now I really need to knuckle down. But my teachers were on my case about, like, I've always been fairly intelligent, but I never put the work in. I was always too interested in football, too interested in being out with the boys. Yeah. And then once I had that to hang on to, like the school, like, okay, so if you want day release, which is, leaving school once a week to go and train with Tottenham, then you need to make sure on the 4 days you're here that you're at it. You need to make sure your homework's done. You need to make sure you're preparing for your GCSEs. So again, that worked for me because I had a carrot. I had something to hang on to, and ended up getting 11 GCSEs and walked away from school. That's not the most intelligent, but walked away with something, with a foundation that I can build on at any point.
And then you're in Spurs. You get pretty much sent out on loan at. How old were you? Went to 17 when you went to Yeovil.
Yeah, so I did 1 year as a scholar, and then went straight on loan in the second year to Yeovil in League One.
And Yeovil, you played 44 out of 45 games.
Yeah.
And is it right that at the end of season award you won 4 out of 5?
Yeah, it was one of my best
Smashed
years ever.
it.
Yeah, it was quite surreal, to be fair, because until 15 I hadn't even been signed by an academy. So to then be like 17, 18 by the time I won the awards, having a good year for Yeovil in League One was it was surreal. And I supported Brentford growing up. Brentford and Arsenal was probably I could never afford to go Arsenal, but Arsenal was the big team that I supported. Brentford was a local team, and to play against them was phenomenal, So at that stage, everything was exciting, everything was new. My dad was coming to every game. Everything was just like the dream that we all imagine, right? That period there was like living the dream.
And were you excited to go to Yeovil, or did you see it as like a disappointment that you weren't progressing within Tottenham, kind of staying there? Or
no, for sure. For me, it was a big progression. Yeah,
nice.
Like most of the players that I was with in at 17, 18 at Spurs, they were still in the youth team, still playing games that kind of mean nothing. Hoping for opportunities with the reserves. So for me to be out playing first team football, it was the best year I could have possibly done.
Fair play.
And then it was out to saying that. Just going back to Yeovil, how are you feeling when your name's getting called up for the 4th award? Is it a bit like fucking hell?
I'm a bit shy at that point. Yeah, a bit shy for sure. But I'd been told that you're going to receive a couple, so I kind of knew to expect something. But yeah, to have won 4 out of 5 was amazing.
Were you liked or hated?
Liked because I think I was cheeky. I still had the cheekiness I had from when I was at school, but I was also pretty humble. I had my head screwed on, and I think the boys definitely looked after me. They felt that my heart was in the right place, and they wanted me to do well. So a lot of them said, we'll see you in a few years on Match of the Day, and it came to fruition.
Nice.
And then the following season, Bristol City. So you've gone from a loan move in League One to a loan move to the Championship.
Yeah.
And strangely enough, we had Mitch Clark in the studio for episode 1, who carbon copy, went out on loan at 19, was living on his own, was bored, started going to the casinos. And that was a similar situation with yourself, wasn't it? You were put in an apartment or a flat in the town centre.
Yeah.
And you had casinos, nightclubs around where you were, and you were living alone at 19 as well?
Yeah. So I had everything there for me that shouldn't have been, basically. I had Hooters across the road. I had Grosvenor on one side and Genting on the other. So it was I was just back and forth to the casino every single day. Couldn't hide it. The manager knew it was. Bristol's. It's a city, but it's a fairly small city. Everyone kind of, especially as a football player, everyone knows what you're doing and when you're doing it. So the manager pulled me in there and said, "Look, get a grip of it. I heard you in a casino the night before a game. Look, these things can spiral out of control. Get a grip on it." And I wish it was that easy. It wasn't. Obviously, I gave him the word of mouth. I said, sure. It's that was just a one-off, and it won't happen again. But it did happen. The next day, 2 days later, whatever it might have been. So that was when things. I mean, even at Yeovil, I was gambling, but it was in the bookmakers, and it was a smaller amount. I mean, technically, I shouldn't even. Is it 16 or 18 in the bookies? I don't even know.
18,
Yeah.
yeah.
I shouldn't even have been in the
Same as me.
bookies,
I was 16 when I first went into a bookies. Never got ID'd, so I looked a bit older.
Yeah.
But I should never have been exposed to gambling at 16.
Yeah.
Because you've got to be over 18. I know they advertise all the time.
Yeah.
But you've got to be over 18 to gamble. So. Yeah, I think there's common things with a lot of people I speak to regarding being in the bookies underage and having that early exposure to gambling before you really should.
Yeah.
So what was it like mentally, like being popular at school, being getting sent out on loan, but then moving away on your own? How was that to deal with? Did you struggle with that? Because I'm someone that always liked someone around me, not very good on my own.
Yeah, do you know what? I didn't. I actually enjoyed it.
Did you?
I actually enjoyed being away, new city, meeting new people, new adventure. I enjoyed it, and a lot of my friends that I grew up with, they would still come with me. So it's they would still come, travel down 2-3 times a week. So I never really felt that alone, As a footballer, especially in League One of the Championship, where you've got 46 games, in particular the Championship, because it has an international break, which means so those weeks where you're not playing, it means the other weeks are all crammed in. So you're playing mostly 2 to 3 games a week, and you're traveling, you're on the road, and you travel the day before every game. So. That was all right. I never really felt like I had that much spare time, and the spare time I had, I gambled. So it was kind of at that point, I always gambled with somebody though. So, when one of my friends would come up from London, then I'd gamble. If I was on my own, at that point, I wouldn't go.
Yeah, I think you mentioned something. I don't know whether it was in an article I read, and we'll come on to this later on. But on the way to gambling with somebody, you'd be quite happy, upbeat, different person. When you're gambling, it was almost like that person knows not to speak to you. and then on the way home it's a completely different person because you've lost all that money. So it's a different persona, and it was. I had the same situation. I'd go to the casino. People would say, "You've done enough now. Just fuck off. I don't want to hear it." You don't want people to talk to you. You want it to look like you're with someone, but you don't care that you're with that person. You're there to gamble and spend your time gambling. That was what it was like for me, anyway.
Same. I can certainly relate. You know, but they're the parts there where I look back and I feel, wow, like, you know, when I go through the stage of making amends, which I'm sure we'll touch on later, but it's like I have to make amends to those people because. So on the way there, we can have something to eat. We can laugh. We can joke. I mean, I say we have something to eat. It's on the way, right? I don't really want to be diverting too much because I've got the adrenaline going. I want to go, but I'm certainly a different person when I'm there. Like, as soon as you lose, get the fuck out of it. Like, I don't want to hear that. Like, you've done enough, or wait till tomorrow. And it's like, no, it needs to be now, right now. And it was rude, horrible in those situations. You know, so a lot of those people are on my amends list.
Did it become aware to you at this point that it was going to be an issue? Or is it very much like that can't happen to me? Because that's what I was like with mine. I was like, nah, it's not happening. And then like, boom, you wake up, you're in rehab, you're like, fuck, it happened.
Yeah, I mean, at certain stages, not at that point. I think at that point it was still like, I'm in a little bit of trouble here, but I didn't think it was as severe as it was. It wasn't long after I then realised I've got an issue. So I'm someone who knew I had an issue pretty much the whole way through it, and I still couldn't stop. You know what I mean? But certainly, probably at 18, I felt like, oh no, this is still fairly mild. You know, I could still eat after gambling. You know, whereas later down the line, I wouldn't save myself a penny. You know, so it definitely progressed quite quickly.
And what did things look like when you left Bristol City and went back to Tottenham? I know there was another loan move to Swansea.
Yeah.
But did you play for Tottenham before you went out on loan to Swansea?
No, I actually played for Tottenham in one game before I went to Bristol.
Right,
so I played one game. It was actually like North London derby against Arsenal. Got thrown in the cup game. Good experience. But the following season, I went straight out on loan to Swansea, and I would say that's where things, even though football was still great, I was still able to sort of cover up what I was doing, and it didn't affect my performances. If anything, maybe aided my performances because I wasn't feeling much pressure when I went on the pitch, because I was almost like, the pressure for me is in the casino and chasing my money. When I went on the pitch, it was like my freedom at the time.
Take your mind off things.
Take my mind off things at the time. That wasn't the case later on, but that was Swansea for me was where things started to escalate because the money went up. You know, as the money went up, I gambled more. You know, instead of Bristol, were kind of like, okay, I'm even though I was Championship, it wasn't mega money because I was an 18-year-old, you know. But the following year was when I started to get real money, and that was where I started to think, wow, like, I'm in trouble here because I'm getting good money and I'm broke.
Yeah.
Is there nothing like in place from the clubs, like money management courses or anything like that, or like, obviously being out of myself, it kind of doesn't matter if you're gonna get the money, you're gonna get the money.
Yeah. No, there was none of that. Things now are changing, and if you do a full scholarship, there'll be a lot of education around addiction, around managing your money. There's people that come in and speak and do different talks. I'm one of them, you know, go in and talk to the boys and stuff and try to manage that better. But back then, no, I mean, I said I did 1 year and went straight out. So there was no media training, there was no management of money. It was just me in front of the media with a lot of money, and sort of I won't say left to fight for myself, because the academy manager was always in touch with me, and so was a couple of other coaches. But it was almost like I was in the big wide world at that point.
Yeah, and you can pretty much do what you want.
Could do what I want, and even for the, you know, one thing we'll touch on as well is, like, for parents it's really difficult, because like my parents were never rich. You know, they were always okay, but they were never rich. So like, how could they manage me? You know, like, they'd never been in money, so they also didn't know how to manage money. And they knew what I was spending was ridiculous, but it was almost like, how can they tell me to stop? Because every year was going up and up and up. Like, I was earning more and more and more, and my career was going up and up and up. So it was almost like, what could they say at that point? You know, and I look back now and I think they were in a really difficult position, because they could see their son in trouble, but how involved could they get? You know, as much as they tried, it was that they were always met with resistance, especially early on.
And I think it's definitely worth mentioning there as well, because I think about the same with my mum. Back then, we're talking 2011, 2012, you told someone you got a gambling problem, stop gambling.
Yeah.
That's what you'd be told.
Yeah.
Until Merson started to be a lot more mainstream with some of the stuff he was saying. I remember my mum called me after Merson did a BBC documentary, and she was crying, and she said, I'm really sorry, because I had no idea that it showed Merson like how his brain works when a gambling advert come on and things like that. And my mum and people used to say, stop gambling, you fucking idiot. What are you gambling for? Just stop.
Stop drinking. All
and
that stuff.
If you told someone now you got a gambling addiction, they ain't going to say stop gambling. It's looked at as a proper addiction.
Yeah.
Did you find that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
certainly. Yeah. I mean, I'm cross addicted. You know that yourself with the drink. Like with the drink, I feel people understand it a little bit better. That you could be a problem drinker, let's say. But with the gambling, it was almost like no, there's no real issue with gambling. You know, it's just a bad habit. Stop it. But then obviously now through lots of different people, lots of different studies, they started to realize actually no, it's an issue. You know, it's just as dangerous, if not in some ways more dangerous than alcohol and drugs, because you can hide it better. When I was drunk, you could see. You know, I'm sure if you was on drugs, I'd also be able to visibly see it.
Eyes pinging.
But with the gambling, it was like something I could turn up today and you not know what I've done this morning.
Yeah.
I could hide it.
And that was one of the really, not hard parts, but for me to always have a conversation with you to be able to understand, because drugs and drink, like for me, it alters your mind. It actually does something. There's effects. I could never see the appeal to gambling, but obviously having conversation with yourself and that, it's a whole different ballgame, isn't it?
Yeah. The adrenaline rush that it gave me was like, I can't explain it. You know, like there was no football game could even compare, which is frightening. You know, because I've played on some unbelievable platforms. You know, with incredible players around me and incredible atmospheres, but still didn't compare to the high of gambling, you know, the buzz of gambling, because once I bet, it was like nothing else mattered, you know, and it was like, that was for me, it was my drug, you know, that was like the heroin or the cocaine, because it was just a high, and the only time it stopped was when I ran out of money, you know, which as a Premier League footballer is hard to do, because well, not hard to do. I managed to find a way to do it, but it's hard to do in the sense that I could always borrow, you know, because people go, "You're a Premier League footballer, of course." Whatever excuse I come out with, they're whatever, you know what I mean? They're trusting it, you know. So it was really easy for me to get my hands on more and more money, which that was the hard thing to do, you know, hard thing to stop.
When you mention a buzz with gambling, it's the buzz of, I've just won. For me, the buzz was never winning. When I won, I didn't care. Mm-hmm. There was no celebration. I've just won this. Mm-hmm. The buzz was having the bet on, or winning the money, but then thinking about the next bet. And I know you spoke a lot about roulette. Roulette was the same for me. I could tell you the board all the way around on the betting terminals in the bookies, fixed odds betting terminals that are a load of bollocks. I could name the board. I could tell you where it was going to land before it. Do you know what I mean? All of that sort of stuff. And that was my buzz, thinking I know where it's going to land and all that. Not winning. It was more taking part in it and getting the buzz from that side of things.
I think like the winning side of it, what the winning did do for me was give me a feeling that I can now go again, you know, at ease, at comfort. You know, that for me was my ultimate high. You know, it was like, okay, I've got now a stack of chips. Even if I've cashed it, whatever I've got, it's like, that's my gambling money now. Do you know what I mean? That I don't have to go and stress about the rest of the money that I can lose. This is my pot to go and play with. That was a bit excited me the most. You know, it's like I knew, like, as you said, it's always about the next one, isn't it? It's never about, it's the same with a drink, right? It's always, exactly, I heard it shared in a meeting, like my favourite drink was always the next one, you know, and it's like, it's so true. It's like we're always chasing the next one. We're never actually content with what we got in that moment. But that took a lot of years of trial and error, a lot of years of therapy, a lot of years of pain to sort of come to that realisation.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually, because Stephen Bartlett talks about it a lot, doesn't he, about how you want to achieve something in life, but then when you get there and you think you've achieved it, you're not content with it, you're looking at the next thing. And I think that's something that's really important. It's something I've tried to work on in terms of celebrating the small wins and actually being content with it, instead of thinking, right, that's done, on to the next thing.
Yeah, 100%.
Just going back to Swansea, mate, you mentioned that's where things sort of started to spiral out of control. Can you give us, because I think, was it Brendan Rodgers? Did he come out and say he'd never seen anything like you on a not? Can you tell us a little bit about Swansea, if you don't mind?
Yeah, no, sure, yeah. So I was in a pretty wild squad, to be honest with you. Like Leroy Lita, Danny Graham, Gary Monk, and then that's the mad thing about football. A few years later, he was a manager, and you're thinking, wow, okay, he's had some progression in a few years, you know. So it was Wayne Routledge, Ashley Williams. We had a really good squad. I'm sure there's plenty on there I've missed out as well. A really good squad, top players, but really good guys. That was without doubt the best squad I've ever been in, for sure.
Really?
Yeah, without doubt. We just had such a good time. You know, we were all in it together.
Is that in terms of culture?
Yeah, in terms of culture, for sure. Like, I think a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us, it's our first year in the Premier League, you know. And like, you've got like Leon Britton, who'd worked the whole way to get there, Joey Allen, Scott Sinclair, it's so many. So it was a great year for all of us on and off the pitch. We had a lot of success on it, but off the pitch, we would go out, we'd all be drinking together. 10 of us would go to the casino. It was just a buzz, you know, it was a great buzz. And then Brendan Rodgers decided to take us to Tenerife for some warm weather training. Probably the worst idea he's ever had, I think. It was just absolute carnage from the get-go. And I think those of us who really went for it stood out, let's say, you know, and that's hard to stand out in that squad because everyone loved it, but it was like there was a few of us that really, really went for it. And there was a couple of altercations that he's had to step in and stuff. And he'd said when I got back, like, he'd heard the stories from Wine Street. I don't know if you've ever been to Swansea, but there's a place called Wine Street. It's wild. I wouldn't recommend to go there in recovery for sure. Like, I wouldn't recommend it. He said I heard the stories from there, but I didn't quite believe it because it didn't add up. And he said, but you're wired differently for sure. You're wired differently. Like this is just, it's unacceptable, you know. And I think that's an important point to touch on. Is like the Jekyll and Hyde that it was speaking about in recovery. Is like that's exactly it. Like so much of it people can't see. They literally can't see. So I could be at my mum's and everything be fine and speak well mannered or whatever it might be. You know, you could put me in Buckingham Palace and I could hold myself, but then put a drink in me or start a bet, and then we become that person that's effing and blinded, the person you're with who's telling you to don't have any more drinks or don't bet anymore. So it's like such contrast in people, and that was the first time he'd actually witnessed it. So hearing it was like, nah, it's impossible because I know Steven, I know, which he knew, that it was the real me that he knew, but it was also such a dark part of me that once the demons were let loose, that he didn't recognise, and it shocked him.
So at Swansea, did you already lost 200 grand by the time you were there?
Yeah, more than that even. Yeah, lost
more than that.
Yeah, I went my first time. I went into rehab at 19. It was when I was at Swansea, and I went there in the hope that it would help with the gambling. But I remember, you know, we spoke about it earlier, didn't we? I turned up there a week in. They're telling me that this is, you know, you're gonna have to go to Gamblers Anonymous meetings for the rest of your life. This is you now. You know, I didn't want to hear it. Absolutely.
You're how old then? 19?
19.
That must have been crazy to probably, for rehab to work, there's got to be a lot of acceptance on yourself.
Yeah.
And I cannot imagine someone telling me to go to rehab at 19 because I just wouldn't want to know. I guess I just wouldn't be ready. I'll be like, I'm still having fun at this point.
Yeah, exactly that. And there was parts of it, large parts of it that were fun. And whereas the other people in there were obviously much further down the road, and when they're talking, I was like, I can't relate to this. I'd go to a Gamblers Anonymous meeting in the evening. I said, no, I can't relate to any of this. This is not me. But what I was doing was I was looking for the similarities instead of the differences, right?
Yeah.
And we can all find them, yeah. Like if all of us here have been to meetings, we can all find them. If we don't have to look too hard to see the differences. You know, like he's older than me. He drank vodka. I drank sambuca.
He's lost his house.
He's lost his house. I haven't done that. I haven't. You know, whatever it might be. But what I later realised was they were all just not yets. You know, they were just like, I haven't done that yet. You know, I haven't done that yet. And then as the years have gone by, I've done pretty much everything. You know, so now I sit in a room and I'm like, I can relate to near enough everything. Which isn't good. You know, I wish I was 19 in a room questioning things. You know, but the acceptance wasn't there. And I walked out of rehab after a week.
You went after a week?
I went after a week. It was a 4-week program. Walked out after a week.
What did the club say about that?
Again, I don't think there was much understanding at the time. You know, I really don't think there was much.
Just think you're cured.
Well, it was one of those where, you know, as a gambler, I became a good liar. So I was able to. I don't remember what I said, but I would have lied and masked
manipulated the situation.
And, you know, I was injured. So I said, I've come back here to do my injury. I couldn't get the right treatment there, so I've come back here to get the treatment. Whatever I would have said at the time. That's the problem. I learned to lie better and better and better. So I can't even remember what I would have said, but I would have said something. The club would have said, okay, as long as you're sure. Because I went in off my own back. It wasn't like they were sending me. I went off my own back because I recognised it's one of those classic ones. I was on a real low after losing a shitload of money and owed people money. On a crazy low, I reach out for help. You know, but a day or two later, I start to think, I don't want that. You know what I mean? But it's like those highs and lows of a gambler, or an addict, full stop, really. They're tough to manage your emotions with the high and also to manage them with the low.
When we were 19, my mum will be listening to this, so sorry, we were driving around Cov throwing fruit at people. You were earning significant amounts of money.
Sorry to all them people as well, by the way.
Yeah.
That's one of your amends, yeah?
Were you ready to manage these sort of sums of money at 19?
No, I clearly wasn't. You know, it clearly wasn't. But that's not to say, because again, I don't think it's that one where like, oh, footballers get paid too much. I don't buy into that, you know, because firstly, because the clubs are making crazy sums of money, the TV companies are making crazy sums of money, so the betting companies. So the only people not to earn it should be the players. Like I don't agree with that. The players are the ones who make the whole thing possible.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? So
I agree.
So I don't want to go down that path. And often people jump to that when I say, oh, I couldn't handle the money. That's because you earn too much too young. Well, a lot of players do handle it, you know. It was just something in me, you know, from year 7 that started it, you know. When I had a couple of pounds, I was betting. So I wouldn't say it was that, but I would say that certainly it certainly accelerated things, because it meant I was able to do large sums of money. Whereas if I was a plumber, it would have taken me many, many years to have got to that stage. Whereas a footballer, I was there within minutes, you know. So it was that would be the difference for me.
Yeah. And mentally, like, I can't believe that after that season with Swansea, you then went on, despite what must be going on in your mind in terms of owing people money, losing money, knowing that Brendan Rodgers has had that chat with you, that you go on and get five appearances at the Olympics for Great Britain, and you get your first England cap and you score.
Yeah.
Like, where's that mental toughness coming from? I know you've alluded to it already, sort of, with saying that was your escape, sort of being on the pitch. You weren't gambling, but it must be hard for a 19, 20-year-old lad that's representing his country with them sort of players, but you've also got that going on in the back of your mind.
It was, but at that time, and I emphasise at that time, it was a welcome distraction. You know, so football was a game like my escape. I went onto the pitch and everything didn't matter. It was exciting. I also want to say that I did have periods of abstinence. So like most of my life, I've been a binge drinker, binge gambler. So I wasn't your everyday drinker, everyday gambler. So what that meant was I could go like a month or 2 months without gambling, and those would be the periods where my career would start to pick up, you know, and then it would be a bad game and I'd go again. You know, I never had the tools to deal with the lows, but I could manage the highs. You know, I didn't feel the need to go and drink or gamble when we were winning. You know, for me, it was always on after a loss or after a setback. That was for me when I really dipped. I'd actually go as far as say it was actually fairly easy, and it was a comfort for me actually to have the football. It's when the football turns. That was when I couldn't handle. When it was like the mess of the gambling, the alcohol, combined with the fact that football was chewing me up and spitting me out, that was when I was like gone. Whereas when it was like the mess of the gambling, but football's great, it was. I'll be honest, it was fairly easy for me to manage that.
So we've got all that going on. Like, you've made your debut for England. You're now an Olympian, but I know you don't class yourself as one. I've heard you say it on a podcast that you don't, which is baffling to me, because what an achievement.
Mind. Yeah, no, it doesn't even cross my mind. It's I might start saying it from
today.
today.
You should
now,
do. But like, were you able to take it all in and actually enjoy what you were doing? Like, you've just made your debut for international country, or was your mind like elsewhere?
Yeah, no, I was elsewhere. It was on to the next one, which isn't just an addict, by the way. Like most footballers, I've seen it, I've lived it, spoke to all of them. We're all like that at the top level, right? So let's use Man City as an example, yeah. So they'll win the Premier League on the Saturday, and then they've got an FA Cup final, whatever it might be, on the Wednesday, and then they've got the Champions League final on the next Saturday, and then that finishes, and you think, oh, that's the time that they enjoy it. Well, no, because then they've got the Euros or the World Cup or whatever it might be. Then that finishes, and it's, can you win it again? Can you win the treble again? It's like, honestly, at that elite level, it was just constant. So, I mean, I wasn't at Man City level, but it was at Tottenham where we were competing for Champions League, was in the Europa League, was in the FA Cup, the Carling Cup, what it was called at the time. So you got those 4 competitions going on. Then I was playing for England, and just off the back of the Olympics, I've got 6 different things going on. Do you know what I mean? So there was no time to do it. You know, literally, like the top players, you're seeing all of them, like the Ronaldos, the Messis, the Harry Kanes. Finish the game and it's like, boom, next one. So in a way, it's like, I mean, Tony Adams said it before, like his first addiction was football. And I later realised, actually, my first addiction was football, because he gets so caught up in the bubble. It's why a lot of players speak about troubles when they retire, right? Because it's consumed them for so many years. Yeah. You put it down, it's hard, right? To fill that void, to fill that time. So for me, I definitely look at football today and go, that was for sure, without doubt, one of my addictions, you know. And at the time it was healthy, and later on it was not so healthy.
I've got to ask, did you mark Ibrahimovic in the game against Sweden?
I did, yeah.
How was that? And what was that experience like, scoring a goal at my first cap and all that sort of stuff?
It was surreal. So we went 1-0 down, then Welbeck equalised, and then I or maybe I equalised, and then Welbeck scored, whichever way around it was. But it was 2-1, and I actually came off the pitch at that time, right? So I was like, I always like to mention that bit. I came off the pitch. It was like 78 minutes, something like that. And Shawcross came on, and obviously he had an unbelievable career in the Premier League at the time. And I just felt so sorry for him that he'd experienced that 12 minutes of just like Zlatan. He scored a hat trick in the 12 minutes or something. He'd already scored the one before that as well. So 4-2, I think he scored all 4. And it was just surreal. We were just sat on the bench, just like, how is that possible? So what may have been my headlines soon turned into his headlines. The good thing is no one forgets the game. You know, not everybody knows it's that and show. Like it's a memory that obviously I treasure. But he surprised me in the sense that a lot of players at that point I felt had been hyped up and they weren't as good. But a lot of his was self-hype, you know. But he was that good. He actually really was. Like for me, he was one of the best I played against. For
was
sure.
he?
Yeah, he was. I'd say him and Aguero were the two toughest. Aguero offers something very different, you know. Always plays on the shoulder, always in the blind spot, gets half a chance, finishes it. Zlatan was much more physical, a real arrogance about him, but it worked for him, you know. And he was quick. Normally we play against big players, are not as quick, but he was quick, strong. And he can finish.
Had it all.
Yeah, he was good.
And then when you come back from England, are you back with Spurs then for a bit?
Yeah, that was my year at Spurs. Yeah.
And that's where did you 24, 27 games, something like that? Is that right?
Yeah. It was. Yeah, I think it was 27. It was 27 or 28, one of those two numbers, right? And I had to play 30 games to get a new deal, automatic new deal. And I never played them. I'd stopped. Like the manager pulled me out of the team with like 10, 15 games to go, and I felt like, they're doing this deliberately, whatever. And yeah, it was Villas-Boas, and I mean, in all honesty, I didn't have my best year. You know, I had some decent performances within it, but I didn't have my best year. At that point, I think things were starting to catch up with me. It was just the very beginning of it. The gambling was pretty intense. The drink was intense at that point, for sure. The drink, because again, I was in another really good squad where the boys like to drink. So this is like, talking about it today is almost like foreign, because like it just don't happen nowadays. But 10 years ago, it was still the in thing. You know, it literally was. It's like people think I'm talking about 50 years ago. I'm like, no. 10 years ago, we would all go out and get drunk. We'd play on a Thursday night, get drunk ahead of the Sunday game. I don't know how. Not all of us, because you still had your Gareth Bales who would, you know, go home, get a massage, watch Family Guy, learn Spanish, like the elite professional. And then you had us who were like, let's just go out. But that's the way we dealt with it. I wouldn't say that we didn't care or he cared more than us. It was just, that was the way we dealt with the pressure. And we were all under pressure, and he deals with it one way and I deal with it another way, and so on. But there were certainly healthier ways that I could have dealt with it.
Yeah. And but you were offered a new deal with Spurs, weren't you?
I was offered it, yeah. I was offered it at the end of the year. They said to me, look, they wanted that deal anyway and give it to me. But I had too many arguments. I couldn't get my own way. I was impatient. I felt the manager didn't like me. I felt Daniel Levy didn't like me, which is nonsense. Why would he be offering me a new deal? You know? But that was the stuff in my head. Also had a bit of shame involved because I'd acted a clown. You know, especially on the end of season trip, I just acted an absolute clown. So I just wanted to get away, get a fresh start. And I was going through one of those periods again. I wanted to get sober. So I was like, if I get away, I'll be clean then. Not from alcohol at that point, because I still didn't recognise that alcohol was an issue. You know, this is how deluded, you know, I was. Like, I didn't actually think alcohol was the problem. I just thought gambling. So went away, went to Cardiff, got made captain, didn't gamble for 9 months. Everything was great. But again, things didn't work out on the pitch for one reason or another. The team got relegated, and I went straight back to gambling. You know, and it's like that was my go-to. That was my coping mechanism.
And you went Cardiff, but that was a transfer, not a loan move, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So you turned was it 4-year contract?
Yeah.
Turned the 4-year contract down with Spurs, and then you've sort of mentioned the reasons to why there. End up moving to Cardiff. How are you captain? Like, where are you finding leadership skills from to lead a team whilst you're also battling with all this stuff?
Yeah.
So I found that crazy.
You know what, actually, if I'm honest, I actually think that we make good leaders.
Yeah.
I actually do. I'll say that on record. I actually do think that we make good leaders. I think because of our empathy and our understanding of other people's journeys and emotions and what they go through, I think we do make good leaders. I think it was a bold move from Malky Mackay to give me the armband. I mean, I wasn't club captain. That was still Mark Hudson and Craig Bellamy, but I was team captain. So when they weren't playing, I was captain. So I took that role seriously. I took that role really seriously. Now I said I wasn't gambling, and it was.
Did that role make you think, I can't be gambling, I've got a serious role to play here, or did that not?
No, it didn't really come into my mind, but it was just like I wanted to be clean of gambling, and I was clean of gambling, and I was appreciating that. But when I look back, it's again, the delusion is frightening. I wasn't gambling, but I was drinking 2-3 times a week, you know. So as a Premier League footballer, I can't be drinking 2-3 times a week. And I laughed the other day, right? I said that in the interview. I said, yeah, I was mad. He was out drinking 2-3 times a week. And then someone must have commented underneath it, and someone screenshot it to me where they're like, oh, that sounds wild, 2-3 nights a week. Like, wow. You know, that kind of mug off. And I was thinking, if only you knew like what those 2-3 nights look like. But it's like, okay, yeah. So it was a lot. It was a lot to handle. My body was still coping then. It was still able to process the insane amounts of alcohol and still perform.
And Solskjaer then come in after Malky Mackay when you were there, is that right?
Yeah, that was 6 months in, yeah.
Is that when they had, is it Vincent Tan? The guy that changed them from playing in blue to red, was it?
And it was all that year.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. So the fans weren't too happy.
Yeah.
It was I mean, something had happened off the pitch with Malky. I still don't really know what the real truth behind that was, but we lost a good manager, and we had Solskjaer, who was a great guy, but at the time I don't feel was quite ready to be in a relegation battle. And we fell from like 11th to 20th, and we went down as rock bottom. So that was a tough 6 months then. But I'd done enough in performances to warrant a move. But the trouble with me is once it goes wrong, my go-to is, right, I'm going to gamble. You know, I'm going to self-destruct, basically. You know, I can replace the word gamble with self-destruct.
I've heard you mention that in a few podcasts, but where do you think that mindset comes from? Like, is that something you spotted from like early years or anything like that?
Something that I still work through today on therapy. I can't quite understand why I build it up and self-sabotage it and cause myself ginormous amounts of pain and those around me as well, because they see me doing well, they start to believe again, and then something goes wrong, and then I burn it all to the ground. You know?
And is your head telling you that you deserve it and stuff like that? Or?
There's certainly an element of that. There's a certain element of severe self-hate for sure, low self-worth, not feeling good enough. They all play parts. The self-hate, I don't know really where it comes from, but it's definitely in there. It's still in there today, and within a click of a finger, I could destroy it. You know, absolutely destroy it, and it gets harder and harder each time to come out of that.
Yeah,
you know, because it's like, what's the point? They're the words that I ask myself. What's the point? Because if I get well this time, I'll do it again. I get well this time, I'll do it again. So the walls were certainly closing in, and I know if I do it again, I know I don't know how I'd get out of that.
And not to jump too far ahead, but obviously with that mindset, what's been for you the best way to be able to switch that? Has it been therapy, meetings, a combination?
Combination, yeah. I was going to say a combination of everything, really, and prayer as well.
Yeah.
I don't really know who I'm praying to, because there's times I don't believe in God, so I don't really know. Like in recovery, they talk a lot about higher power. Try to find my higher power and try to believe that things will be okay, but I just find I become very short-sighted. You know, start to think that that's it. It's the end of my world, when it wasn't. You know what I mean? Like Cardiff getting relegated was not the end of my world. I still got an £8 million move to QPR that summer. You know, I was playing alongside Rio, and you can have a great experience, but it's almost too late because I've already hit the button. You know, and then once I hit the button, it can go on for ages, man. It's long.
Probably a good time to reference that scene, as you mentioning briefly religion there, that the soul music coming from downstairs. We weren't aware that was going to be going ahead today. So we'd love to say we paid for them, mate, for your arrival. But unfortunately, if you can hear that, our apologies. You mentioned QPR there. So you go Cardiff, QPR. The year Cardiff come down, you make your move to QPR for £8 million. Stay at the club for 3 years, 50-odd appearances. Yeah. What was QPR like? How was the move? What was the...
It was madness, yeah. It was a bad move, terrible move. Wrong place, wrong time. Didn't want to go. Had Southampton on the table, which I really wanted. Was a lot less money, and my agent was like, "No way, that's the worst move you can make. Don't do it."
Why? Why would that have been?
He just felt that he looked at it from a numbers point of view. He
Yeah,
was
of
really good at
course.
numbers, but wasn't so good at understanding the player.
Yeah.
You know, and what I needed at the time was somewhere else. I didn't need to come to West London and be on more money in a really toxic environment. You know, I didn't need that. And I also had Crystal Palace. That was the year when Tony Pulis walked out,
Right.
because he couldn't get myself and I think Sigurdsson over the line. So
Oh,
it's
why?
like, yeah. So it was,
Wow.
he was told like a couple of days like before it, look, he's going to walk. So you know, that's no longer an option to go Palace. And yeah, so it was Southampton or QPR, and I would say at that point I actually felt, let's say, very much persuaded that QPR was the right one, and if it wasn't the right one, I'll get you to Southampton the year after, which he did. To be fair, he actually did do that, so he did put it out of the bag. But that year at QPR was a really bad one. Didn't enjoy it at all. Didn't enjoy the environment. Didn't enjoy the changing room. My performances were below par. Fans hated me. Just wasn't a good year. Went out on loan the year after. Came back the year after. Just 3 years of really bringing all my problems to a head, and then not wanting to go on the pitch. That was. I guess that was probably the beginning of the end. You know, the day I signed that deal was the beginning of the end of what was a promising career.
Do you see your time there as more of a job that enabled you to be able to feed your addiction?
It definitely fed my addiction, but not in a good way. You know, at that point, it was just like hell on earth. Really, it was just like such a vicious cycle. Was gambling, drinking, getting in newspapers for all the wrong things, coming to training, not enjoying being at training, playing on the weekend, losing every week. Fans are on my back, which at times I felt were harsh. I didn't play well that year, but definitely at times I felt were harsh, because there was a lot of other players that were underperforming or not even turning up, not even coming to the games, saying they're injured and just throwing the towel in. You know, I was like, I turned up every week to play, didn't shy away from what was a really difficult season. So those points I feel were a little bit harsh, but I also understand that they pay their money. They're frustrated that we're not getting the results that they expected us to get, and we were rightly relegated, deservedly so. You know, we were poor.
You just mentioned the fans there, and obviously being a professional footballer, you're open to a lot of criticism and stuff like that. I would imagine you read comments and stuff, but do you think that there's an element of that's where your self-doubt and not feeling good enough comes from stuff like that?
It plays a huge part, for sure. I see it with so many players. Now, players are so sensitive, you know. I think we all are as human beings. We're sensitive, like, but it's almost like they almost think if you're a celebrity or a professional sportsman, professional dancer, singer,
You
whatever,
can just take the abuse.
Yeah, that you're immune to it. It's like I listen to so many like especially like rap artists where they say like they say that you signed up for it, but I don't remember signing my name up for it. It's like I don't remember signing a QPR to go, okay, I was part of this deal. I'm going to get pellets from fans on Twitter, in the streets, in the bars, whatever, you know. But I get that they're frustrated, and I didn't perform, and you know, there's no hiding away from that. But certainly, you know, for me, where I feel that the line was a little bit crossed was like when I was like in a bad way, and it was clear I was in a bad way. Like people would record me and send it to newspapers and stuff like that. That for me was like, come on, I wouldn't dream of doing that to somebody. If I walk down the street today and I see John Stones back from the Euros drinking in the pub, getting smashed because his head's gone, the last thing I'm thinking, mate, let me take a video of him and send it to the Sun newspaper. Do you get what I mean? But that seems to be fun for people. I don't know. I don't like that bit of society, you know. But I was on the receiving end of that quite a bit, and that definitely fed into the
that must be such a head fuck.
Self-hate, low self-worth, not good enough, all that. It definitely fed into that for sure. I don't know if you want to come to it in a bit or not.
No, carry on, mate.
Yeah,
carry on.
No, the lies. That for me has been the hardest bit. The guilt and the shame. You know, like I'm a compulsive liar. You know, that's without doubt. When it comes to this, I'm a compulsive liar. So I would be telling my girlfriend that you know, if I'm in Cyprus gambling, my girlfriend thinks I'm in England. My family think I'm in Spain, and it's managing those two lies,
Keeping up with it all.
How was your day? I want to avoid every possible phone conversation because I'm so sick of being that liar. I don't want to answer the call. I don't even want to say, how's the weather in Spain? How's the weather in England? So I'm managing the weather. I'm managing what I've done today. All a lie, you know? And it sounds small, maybe, if you haven't been there. Small. If you've been there and you know it, the worst of the worst of the worst. And that journey home, knowing I've lost money and I've lost money that from other people as well. Yeah. So I'm now going to have to explain to them that I haven't been in Spain, I haven't been in England, and I didn't really go to training that day, and I didn't really eat that for dinner. I didn't really speak to so-and-so in fact, I've been here the whole time lying, and now I owe X amount of money, and their whole world's going to come crashing down because they thought I was there and they thought they could trust me. You know, like that feeling. That's why when you ask me about doing this podcast, I'm not sure, because with gambling and drink for sure, but it's less. It's so difficult to hide the drink, you know, because if they do call me, I can't say I was here today and there today. They're like, you're at the pub. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not at the pub, you're at a bar. If you're not at the bar, you're at home. You're drinking.
Yeah.
Wherever you are, you're drinking. Gambling, they don't know. They don't know. I could sit there for an hour and give you a full story of my day without doing any of that day. You know, and that's worrying. You know?
And it's crazy how easily it comes, because like for me to enable my using, I was just constantly lying and stealing as well. And it's just like, that's just not me as a person. But because I wanted that feeling of using my substance, just whatever came to my head, I just blurt it out. Yeah. And I wake up in the morning like, shit, what have I said so I don't get caught out? Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so... I can't even. I mean, honestly, I'm lost for words for it, because that for me was like if you peel back all of the gambling, I look back at all of everything that I've done, the opportunities that I've wasted, the money that's gone, the time that's gone. The one for me that's the hardest one is the lies, because I look and go, wow, like how many lies have I told, you know? And you can't keep up with them. I was a good liar. I mean, I was, and you just touched on that. Outside of this, I wouldn't lie. I wouldn't lie to you. Do you know what I mean? But put me involved with the gambling, anything related to the gambling, and those lies can go on for ages, because let's say, for example, I win, so we're only speaking here about when I lose my money. When I win my money, well, the lie will continue for another 2-3 weeks, because I'm not going to come clean now, because I've got this pot of money that I'm going to go back with, so there's no point in me telling you now, because I'm already, you know, so that for me is just, you know, I really want to emphasize on that, because I just think as an addict, it's a really lonely place, you know. I've got one, maybe two people I could tell the full truth to, you know, and apart from that, everybody else, it's some form of lie, you know.
Yeah.
It's a horrendous place to be.
You bang on, mate. I used to really struggle with the fact that I'd think, this ain't me, man. I'm fucking lying to my mum. I'm lying to this person. The lies are getting worse. I'm not a liar. Like, this is making me lie. And I just really struggled to come to terms with the fact that I'd tell all these lies, and then I'd struggle mentally thinking, how have I ended up in this situation, man? I'm telling so many lies that, and people know I'm lying. Some of them think, you're full of shit, mate.
And then you go do it again that night.
Then you go do it again. QPR is when you did your first article with The Guardian. I don't know, you spoke on record. Was it Dominic Fifield?
Yeah.
Who you said's a great guy and he's helped you out over the years. What I found amazing was, why did you do that article firstly?
Why? Actually leads on well to what we're talking about with the lies, really. I was sick and tired of lying to everybody, sick and tired of trying to explain myself when I didn't have an explanation. I couldn't explain why I'd done it again. And I felt part of that was just almost just like coming clean to everybody who'd ever asked that question. That was one reason. Another reason was just wanted like other people who were going through it to know that they're definitely not alone with it, because I had a few different people mention things that I just felt like, you know what, if I just set myself free and give it out there to the universe in the hope that others will take something from it, probably a mistake.
This is what I was going to get to. You said it's a mistake. Now, to come forward whilst you're still in the middle of your playing career with that sort of article, I thought was extremely brave and courageous. And I did think you'd say it was more fucking fed up with the lies. I wanted to be honest about something, try and help other people with my story. But you've again said that it didn't do you any favours by doing that article. Yeah. Why was that? Clubs didn't want to touch you, or?
Yeah, clubs didn't want to touch me. When I walked back into QPI, it was just awkward, you know. And then off the back of that, I was judged and labelled by every single team. Partly rightly so, for sure. Like, I have to own and take accountability. Well, they judged me on my behaviour, and my behaviour was unacceptable. So that's why I couldn't get a club, you know, that's for sure. But I just think when I was going abroad and I was also getting it back, I was thinking, you know what, that article's killed me, because it's in every different language, it's everywhere. And that was a struggle. But the one plus I will say is that the amount of people that have reached out to me and said thank you so much, and the amount of players who've also come forward since then and shared their current players have shared their story. So I'd like to think I've played some part in starting a change, you know. And it's still loads of change that needs to be done, but it's heading the right direction. So that's the positive I take from it.
In modern day football, you were probably one of the first to come out during your playing career and be so open about your situation. I'd imagine.
Yeah, no, I was there. There was only post players post career who had spoken. So I was the first current player, and then I said many have come out since and shared it. Which I think the more we normalise it, the more we normalise these issues, I think the less alone people are going to feel.
Yeah.
And less alone I feel, for sure, because I said a lot of people then now come to me and they feel safe to come to me and say, look, I'm also struggling, or I heard this podcast and I can relate, and this is why I'm here today, right? Because of another podcast that leads to another one and another one. So, I think it's important that I do give back, but one thing I will mention on it is like sharing a story is great, but I'd say definitely share it with someone you trust, someone you feel comfortable with. I think I dived into the deep end as a typical addict. I think it was probably a dive too deep at
all
that
or nothing,
point.
innit?
You know? Yeah, it was all or nothing. But I do wish I'd done it slower and maybe a slightly later stage.
Because you think you said something in the article like you're doing this so you obviously want to tell your story and you encourage others to reach out, but like back then in reality they've watched you tell your story and then thinking, shit, look what's happened to him.
Yeah.
Like if it was now it would be different.
Yeah.
But back then it was like, but then this had to happen to make way for what could happen now essentially. So that must fucking feel wicked.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's part of the journey, right? And I do try to cling on to that. It doesn't always feel like that. Trust me. 2 a.m. when I'm without a team and I'm thinking, what have I done? I wish, there's always those moments, and I always want to own that. You know what I mean? That I definitely, it's not all plain sailing for sure. There's moments of regret, but in general, I think you're right. I try to look at a positive. Try to take a positive spin on it and go that others have followed suit. Today we live in a society where people are aware that people have got issues. I see it everywhere, you know what I mean, which is nice because it's been there, right? But people just haven't been speaking about it.
Yeah, acknowledged it and stuff.
Exactly. People would suffer in silence and end up taking their life, and it was like there could have been a moment before that where you spoke, and I always just encourage people, just try to find that moment before it's too late, you know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that some people it doesn't happen like that. I've lost people to this illness, and I definitely know how severe it is.
Right. So from QPR, there was 2 loan moves sent out to Southampton and Liverpool. Southampton, I know you mentioned you got there and Ronald Koeman was in charge, and he didn't even know you were turning up, did he?
It certainly felt that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a surprise to him when I walked in the office, or so it seemed, because I wasn't greeted with the most warmest of welcomes. So, I mean, look, it happens, I think, quite a bit in football. Deals are done sort of above the manager's head.
Yeah.
And his target was Van Dijk. They got Van Dijk a couple of weeks later, and I didn't play much. I couldn't complain, to be fair. I was behind Van Dijk and Jose Fonte, who were two.
He was good centre half as well, wasn't he?
Both top centre halves for sure. I actually felt at Southampton Jose was better.
Really?
Yeah, I did feel that. Obviously, you could see the potential Van Dijk had for sure, and he had like another level or two to go. But I just felt at Southampton, I don't know what the fans think, but I actually felt Jose was
I think he was a regular for like 3 or 4 seasons, Fonte, at Southampton, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
Yeah, he was a good player.
Yeah.
And then the Liverpool one, I won't even say anything about that, but like you got a call.
Yeah.
And were you drunk at the time?
Yeah, I was drunk. I was just waking up from a mad blackout in Dublin. And,
Yeah.
it was just literally the first thing I'd woke up to was my agent calling me, and I'm shitting myself thinking he's calling because I'm in trouble again, you know, the depressive call or whatever it might be. But it was even more bizarre than that, which was like Liverpool are looking to bring you on loan. Where are you? I was like, I'm in Dublin, smashed. He's like, get yourself home now, get some water down you. Like, let's make this happen. This is gonna happen. It's got a really good chance of happening. So I was like, said to my friend who was a scout at the time, he's lying next to me, I said, get up, let's go, we've got to get on a plane back. So it was like a whirlwind.
That's crazy, mate.
Yeah, it was insane. Just 72 hours later, I'm making my debut against Arsenal up front at Anfield. It was a special moment.
In your head, when Liverpool come knocking, are you like, finally, this is happening now, or?
No, I wasn't. Actually, what I was about to say, I didn't feel deserving of it, which probably ties into what we spoke about. I never really put 2 and 2 together, but in truth, I didn't deserve it though. That's why. Like that one day, I actually know I didn't deserve it because I had a bad year at QPR. I'd had 6 months at Southampton where I played a couple of all right games at the start, then had a bad game and never played again. Got slated for that, by the way, as well. And then just randomly went to Liverpool. Whilst being drunk, I didn't, that's not the story to Liverpool. It's not. I don't take no pride in that.
Yeah.
So I personally rarely talk about it. I get asked it everywhere I go, obviously, because it's Liverpool and it was Klopp. But I personally, I don't ever think to myself I played for Liverpool. It never really crosses my mind because of all the other stuff that was going on.
Yeah.
In the background.
And then released in Jan 16 from QPR.
So I
Go back to for a rehab program.
No, I left Liverpool to go to rehab.
Right, okay.
So when I actually joined Liverpool, again, it kick-started a sobriety patch where I was sober. I was doing everything that I possibly could to get an opportunity. The opportunity never came, and eventually I just burned out. I spoke to Klopp. He didn't give me any sign of wanting me or wanting to play me, and I was again, gave in too easy and hit a self-destruct. I hit it. I two-footed it. That's what I always did. Ran two-footed self-destruct, and ended back up in rehab. Came out of rehab, went to QPR, and then after that, I then left QPR and was like, right, let's put an end to all of this.
Yeah.
This has been going on for too long now. It's too much. It's overwhelming. Let's get out of here. So that was, they call it quite a bit like geographical change. When you think, well, that's going to save me now. I'll get up to Scotland and that will change things. It did change my mindset. I was definitely happier there for sure. It was carnage, but I was happier certainly in that environment. And that played a part. I see it as leading me to my eventual rock bottom.
You had geographical change.
Yeah, I moved to Malta for a year.
Malta, yeah.
Yeah, and that was sound for 7 months until I found a dealer, and then I was back home within 2 months.
Yeah.
No money, anything. So yeah, it's you can go anywhere, be in any environment, but until you deal with the deeper issues, it's just going to keep cropping up.
Yeah.
But just going back to quickly, you said about rehab. So before I went to rehab, I did all the local services and stuff like that. But and obviously, no disrespect to them, it's probably just the training and stuff. But they're not addicts, and I didn't feel like that they could understand me. So the rehab that I went to it was run by addicts in recovery as well, and the level of understanding and to be able to get into my head was just mental. Was your rehab similar or?
It was actually run by people who were also recovering addicts. So I definitely hear you on that. I had a lot of therapy, and when I work with a therapist who hasn't experienced addiction, it's not to say they're not qualified and they don't know what to talk about. For sure they do, and they might help certain people, but they don't help me. Because like you, I need someone who's been there, lived it, really understands.
Relatable.
That definitely. I'd like to relate to who I'm talking with. So I definitely hear you on that one. And my rehab was with people who've been in recovery, but I don't know, for whatever reason, again, I sat there 2 weeks in and was like, I'll tell you what it is for me, right? It's they're teaching me stuff from the very beginning, okay? And my issue's never been about knowing that I've got a problem. I've had so many therapists go, you're okay, because you're halfway there, because you already know you've got a problem and you admit you've got a problem. That's fantastic. I've known that and admitted that for a very, very long time. My problem lies between knowing and applying, yeah? And further than that is wanting to apply it, So that's where I seem to struggle. That's that self-hatred that we spoke about earlier. There's a part of me that doesn't want to help myself. Yeah. There's a part of me that really doesn't want to help. That's where the gap seems to appear.
It's almost for me, it's almost as if my comfort blanket is self-doubt and not feeling worthy. That's always where my head takes me to feel comfortable. And it's this is a familiar place. Let's stay here instead of doing the hard work to get out of it.
Yeah, and it is hard work. It's a lot of hard work. And today I try to do that, and I try to do it on a daily basis. And I don't get it right every day. But you hit the nail on the head. It requires a lot of work. I can't just sit there and go, well, I don't want to help myself today, so I won't help myself today. It's right, I don't want to help myself today. How can I fight against this voice in my head? How can I really try my hardest to do? What can I do? And I have tools to deal with that. And it just depends which tool I want to pick up, So one tool would be speaking to a like-minded individual who's also in recovery, someone relatable, as you mentioned. Another one would be prayer. Another one would be gratitude list. Another one would be go for a walk, go for a run. Training really helps me, so I try to train whatever that looks like. I kind of feel like when I go and run and really run. You know what I mean? It kind of takes that edge off. I'm trying to figure out. Go to meetings. So,
Were you doing GA or AA at this time of your career?
yeah, I was, on and off.
And how did you find that? Because when I first went in, first of all, it was very overwhelming. I was like, how am I here? And then I really struggled with, and obviously this is just my beliefs, and obviously respect to the people's, but the word God was thrown around a lot.
The word what?
God.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
And I was just like, I can't relate to this. Like, they keep mentioning God, and then someone broke it down to me like, well, just you use the word God as higher power instead if you don't believe in God.
Yeah.
And then it clicked. But for the first couple of weeks now, I was just like, I'm not going to get on board with this.
Yeah. There's definitely a part of me that fights against that, probably more today than before, actually. When I first came in, I was much more accepting of God.
Yeah.
And then as the years have gone by, the more pain I've experienced, the more pain I've witnessed, I've pulled away from it, and I really struggle today to have that belief. So I try to have a higher power of some sort.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that looks like, To tell the truth, I know some people have said it's the sea, it's a tree, it's something basically that's going to be there forever, right? You can't put it on a person because that person may disappear tomorrow. So I understand it. Again, it's the understanding, but it's the applying part. And that, I'd say right now that's a work in progress. But it wasn't. Previously, I would straight away go, I believe in God, and it's fine.
Yeah. And I think the main part of recovery is probably everything in life. It's consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you stop doing what you need to be done, you get. For me anyway, I see them behavioural traits coming back of like, just tell that lie to get your own way and stuff like that. And it's just like, whoa, how is this come back so quickly?
Yeah. No, 1,000,000%. Like, daily disciplines are super, super important. Like, that I definitely agree. And I feel the further away I get from a bet, the more my head clears. So the first day, week, month, my head is still very clouded, very, very clouded. And I still want to go back, and I haven't got no acceptance, and I'm depressed, and I feel like shit and all the rest of it. But then it might be the 8th day. So after that, I start to get a tiny bit. I get half an hour relief in my head. Half an hour, just half an hour.
Yeah.
But then after the second week, it might be 45 minutes, and so on and so on. It's like what I struggle with in the rooms, and you mentioned the rooms there, what you struggled with the word God. What I struggle with is when someone says, I've found recovery a week ago, everything's great now, my life's great. That for me is like, what? Like, the destruction I've caused. When I'm sat in that chair, it's going to be longer than a week.
Yeah.
It's in my own head because everyone's different journey, but that's just my personal battle.
Yeah.
I really struggle with that.
Yeah, I completely agree, because it took me a long time to be able to forgive myself for some of the stuff I did. But someone broke it down to me like, if you're not going to be able to forgive yourself and try to make amends, then you're not going to be able to move forward, because you're just holding all that shame, embarrassment, and constantly waking up like, how did I do that? And then not like let it go because you don't care about what you've done, but you have to be able to become a better person and to be able to make amends, because otherwise you're just going to stay down in the trenches, aren't you?
Yeah, spot on is something that I struggle with today, is forgiving myself.
Still today?
Yeah, still today. Yeah, it's I've mentioned a few things, work in progress, that's one of them,
Yeah.
for sure. It's for me, it's really difficult to accept what I've done, to who I've done it to all the opportunities, all the time that's gone, and for me, it's I find it really difficult. I said that's still that bit of self-hate that I hang on to, and that's why I when I do these podcasts, I do like the interviews and stuff. It's like I always try to share as honestly and openly as I possibly can. And I say like it wasn't a magic button for me. It wasn't like I did that and everything just changed. It's like it's step by step, like day by day, things get better and get easier. So from where I started recovery to where I'm at today, I am beginning to forgive myself more and more. I'm closer, but I'm not quite there yet.
It's just work in progress, and it's a daily thing.
We'll get on to Turkey in a second, but you went to Dundee 2018 and you loved your time there? Good group of lads?
Good group of lads, yeah. Bit like my time at Swansea, really, where you've got a good squad. Everyone likes to have a good time, and there was no real pressure on us at the time. We were, when I was brought in there was, let's stay up. That was the goal, because they were in a bit of trouble at the time, and we managed to do that. And we all had a good time in doing so. Following season, I wanted something, a different challenge. That's what we kind of agreed on before I went there. If I didn't get moved that summer, then they was going to let me go, and I was going to be a free agent. And they stuck to their word, which I respect them for.
Yeah.
walked away, and then spent 6 months on my own, which I didn't anticipate. I guess I kind of thought, because of all these nonsense agents and people in football that tell you lies, you know, which I wouldn't do, by the way. It's funny, right? So the addiction side of it is one thing, but I wouldn't lie to a player and say, I'm going to sign you. I'll send the offer through in an hour and never hear from the person again. Like, it's bizarre behaviour. It's really immature and irrespective and disrespectful. But yeah, that's been my experience. That was my experience then, for sure. And it was 6 tough months before I managed to get an opportunity.
And did your recovery journey properly start within that 6 months?
Yeah. That was the point where I started to surrender, really, because it was like, right, there is no way out. There is no club that's going to come calling and save me from all the financial losses that I've had. There's none of that. You know, there is no magic wand. I start to accept my situation for what it was, and that was where real change started to happen, and I started to feel a lot freer. And then, isn't it funny? After that, a move came along, and it wasn't like, you know, gift wrap for me. It was a trial in Alanya and in Turkey, and it was a tough one, but great. I loved it. Loved every minute of it.
So do you still see that 6 months now as 6 months of unemployment, or actually 6 months of a blessing to be able to work on yourself? And because I guess if you didn't have that 6 months of employment, you're going to be repeating the same cycle over and over again.
For sure, yeah. It was 6 months to work on myself. 6 months, probably, it sounds cheesy, but 26 months to find myself.
Yeah.
You know, because it was like, when everything's gone, when all the crowd's gone, when all the noise is gone, all your friends are gone, all the money's gone, and you're there left alone, that's when you have to find yourself, right? It's either do or die at that moment. And I guess that's the moment where I started to also realize myself how strong I am, because at points I thought, no, I'm not, I'll never survive that. But I did survive it. And then day by day, my strength and belief started to grow. Yeah, I'd say the training helped me a lot, you know, because that became part of my daily disciplines, my rebuilding. So it's almost like I'm rebuilding from the inside, but I'm also building from the outside as well. You know, when you start to feel fit and feel strong, it definitely like made me feel a lot better.
You wanted to do this part of the podcast in Turkish, didn't you, with Steve?
No, definitely not.
So from being welcomed to your first club by was it Papi Cisse was playing there and helped you embed into the club and stuff?
Yeah, great guy,
to being managed by Pirlo, to playing in 45-degree heat, to getting your career back on track. Can you sort of summarise that spell in Turkey for us and what that was like just in?
Yeah, also played in minus 20 degrees.
Really?
Yeah. So like there's a part of Turkey that is absolutely freezing. A place called Erzurum, and it was in Alanya, so it's January, right? And Alanya's 21 degrees, beautiful time of the year to be there. And then Erzurum, which was a flight away, only an hour and a half flight away, was minus 20.
What?
Never played in conditions like it. The part of the pitch still frozen. I can't believe only in Turkey that game could go ahead, because in England it's getting called off for sure. You've got frozen bits of the pitch where the ball's just bouncing, your studs don't go in. So it was it's surreal. Not surreal, crazy experience for 4 years. I learned a new language. I met some amazing people. I adapted to a culture. I experienced everything. It was unbelievable. Great food over there as well.
Yeah.
Enjoyed my football, which I hadn't done for a very long time. You know, I'd done moments at Dundee, which I enjoyed the change with Dundee. I wouldn't say I necessarily enjoyed my football at Dundee. You know, it was a difficult place to play, obviously, and I think going there was just everything just sort of clicked, fell into place, and I had an unbelievable 2.5 years. That was the best ever. And then I was met with 1.5 years of controversy, and it was like again challenging me, taking me back to where I'd been, and it was there I had to really use my tools. And some days I was able to use them, other days I wasn't.
Yeah.
You know, but it was as I said, to sum up the 4 years, it had everything.
And have you had time to not celebrate, 'cause that's probably the wrong word, but sort of embrace your achievement of being in recovery while you're out in Turkey, or is it still very much on your football trying to?
No, I think at times I did.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say the last 18 months I felt any of that, but the first 2.5 years I really felt that. You know, like for me, like when I first ever got my year clean, it was like, wow, like I've done a year clean. Like, it's not just a year without drinking and gambling, because that's just a year without drinking and gambling. It's a year of making amends.
Yeah.
Honesty.
Honesty. It's a year of feeling good, you know, when you wake up. Like that for me was like, wow. Like, and I lost a a friend in a car crash during that year. You know, I'd had so many different challenges, but everything was manageable. You know, and I don't think some of those moments can get any more sad. But it was like I didn't need to use. I didn't need to destroy myself in those moments, you know, and I was able to be there for other people and stuff like that. So those are the moments I really appreciate and look back with fondness, you know, and go, those are probably my proudest moments for sure.
Class.
That's really interesting you say that, because with my recovery, it's not me who recognise it. It's other people saying, "Oh, you're doing really well." But in my head, I'm like, there's got to be more. What's next? I need to get more out of this.
Yeah.
But people are like, just chill out. Like, look how well you've done in the last couple of years. But I can't see it myself.
Yeah.
Like, until I kind of write down actually what I've done since I've got clean and sober.
Writing's a great tool for sure. Just be able to see it and having good people around you as well who are telling you the truth. You know, not just saying it for the sake of saying it, but generally, because I do believe you have a shift. You know, it's like that person who I was to who I can be when I'm living a serene life. It's two different people, you know. So,
completely agree, yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like the saying the amends is one thing, but living the amends for me was the most beautiful part of my life for sure.
Yeah.
So time to come back from Turkey and ended up with Colo Toure at Wigan.
Yeah.
Which was Colo's role there was short-lived.
Yeah, really short-lived, unfortunately. I was keen to work with him, hence why I went there. He's my old teammate from Liverpool. But things didn't quite work out for him, and as a result, didn't quite work out for me. You know, new manager come in, and I wasn't his first choice. So I spent most of that time there on the bench, and it was a different experience for me because I'm more experienced now and I'm able to be a positive voice in the dressing room. So I still used my time there wisely, but it wasn't the same as playing.
And something like that to Steven Caulker prior to going into recovery would have probably sent him to have a bet or a drink.
Yeah, or 2 foot the manager. I'd have 2 foot the manager before the 2 foot button. So that shows in a way a lot of what recovery can do for you, because I had a lot of wisdom and be able to control my emotions a lot better than before. You know, I can't control my emotions, so I could control my actions. Is probably a better way to describe it. I still feel the same way, but process it. And like I said before, I sort of 2 foot that fuck it button, so to speak. It was like, no, let's breathe.
It's like you're able to respond now and not react. If that makes sense.
Exactly that. Yeah.
And then we'll come on to sort of post playing, really, mate. So we've had Behind the White Lines, which is, I think, when I was first trying to get in touch with you around that time, you were setting that all up. Are you able to tell us about Behind the White Lines, where it come from and what that programme's about, really?
Yeah, it's just for those who have been released from academies. We focus on 18 to 21, not because that's the only ones who get released, but it's because I feel that age group there are the ones who have been most affected, because they would have been normally playing football since the age of 6 or 7. Their social life's been impacted, their education's certainly been impacted, and they get to 18 and they've got like almost an identity crisis of who are they, what's next. There's always that belief that you drop out from Chelsea, you'll go to Reading, you drop out from Reading, you'll go to Shrewsbury. It doesn't always work like that. It really doesn't. And I think that's a really hard reality for a lot of these young men and women to face. So we focus on trying to help them transition into new pathways. So new, whether that be opportunities for education, whether that be opportunities with football as well. We'd offer trials and showcase games for them for those. Because the one thing I will say, and I definitely want to mention this on this podcast, is that one coach's opinion doesn't dictate your future. That's for sure. I've had 15 coaches say I'm not good enough, and the 16th one give me the opportunity, and so on, right? So we see it all the time today. Gary Neville will say he's crap, Gary Lineker will say he's good. There's a difference in opinion, and I think that's across life, you know, and I always want to encourage these young people to not, you know, get really taken down by that one opinion. Get up and go again. Really important.
And how's everything gone with Behind the White Lines? Have you enjoyed it yourself?
I've enjoyed it. I love giving back. That's something I love doing. I love giving back. I love supporting other people. It's been good. I wish that we had more funding to be able to be more proactive in the community. But it's something that I'm still certainly proud of, and it's something that I look and hope to continue for many years to come.
And there's one thing I want to mention, because I've heard you on. I listen to TalkSport all day because I work from home a lot of the time. I see you pop up on Sky Sports News, come on TalkSport. Whenever you're on TV or you're on media, I think you articulate yourself very well. I think you come across really well to the audience as well. And then I seen you put something on LinkedIn regarding, I don't know whether you put it on or I seen it in in the paper, and it was regarding being dropped as a pundit on TV because Bet365 weren't comfortable with your stance on gambling, effectively. I'm not going to ask you any questions on that because you may want to still get into the sort of punditry area and things like that. But when I seen that, I thought, what an absolute load of bollocks. Because why should you be punished by your lived experience of having an addiction for future work in punditry, which you're obviously very good at? Because anyone that hears you on the radio or sees you live on TV will think he's talking well. He articulates himself well. He comes across, he gets his point across really well. So I'm not going to ask you anything on that, but I just wanted to let you know that from an outsider's perspective, when I hear you on TalkSport and I hear you on the radio, podcasts, etc., I think you come across brilliant, mate. And I think you've got a lot of value to add within that area. So best of luck if you do go down that route. What's the plan for you within football now? Management, coaching? Do you still want to play? What are your aims?
My long-term goal for sure is to be a manager. I feel like I've got a lot to offer with the experiences that I've had. I feel that I can certainly help create an environment that people want to be in. And I think first and foremost, that's the most important. I think having talented individuals that don't want to be there doesn't necessarily create the best result at the end of the week. So I think creating an environment that people want to be in is the first start, and I believe I'm good at doing that. So that's my long-term goal. In the meantime, I need experience in order to achieve that. So I'm looking for kind of like a player-coach role.
Yeah.
I had the experience in Spain. It was unfortunately cut short due to visa complications, but who knows? It's still early on in the transfer window. I hope that the next few months I will get an opportunity. I'm training every day. I'm keeping fit. And let's see what comes. Football is a crazy game.
Good luck with that, mate.
Thank you.
And how are you? More importantly, like how is Steven Caulker now?
Today I'm feeling good. I like to keep it in the day. I've had a good hour and a half with you guys here this afternoon. I had a good morning meeting today. I'm off to chicken wings this afternoon, so I'm feeling good. I tried to keep it in the day. Not every day has been a good day of late. Of course, while I'm job searching, there's a lot of anxiety around that. What's my next steps? And I just need to be present. That's the most important. So I've spoke a lot today about the different tools that I have and that I can use, and it's just a case of applying them right now.
So, mate, I'm not going to ask you any of the questions, but I'm going to hand over to Conor for his last question.
I do actually have one question before. I know you mentioned your son earlier on in the podcast. Have you had to have, or is there potential to have the really difficult conversation of what might crop up around school in regards to what people might say about you? Is that a conversation that you've had to have? Or?
I've had a conversation with him. He knows everything. He knows he's 13 years of age, so I feel he's at an age where he's mature enough to understand it. He knows that I don't drink, and I don't drink for a reason. I don't gamble for a reason. So he knows that I have my ups and downs, and not every day is the same. And he's there to support me as I'm there to support him. So we have a really good relationship. He's got a wise head on young shoulders.
And I suppose it obviously just affirms everything you're doing because he can probably see the changes in
Yeah, absolutely. You can see that, and I hope to be a positive light and a role model for him, because I always tell him life's gonna be tough, right? Like it's not gonna be. I mean, he doesn't want to listen to the teachers right now, and I can understand him and I can relate. So it's like, rather than tell him off and tell him what he should do, it's like I have a conversation with him instead. So just taking different approaches, I find works, and it's like I can only take those different approaches because of the experiences I've had and because of the amount of therapy that I've had.
Nice, cheers, mate. So he's got 10 quick-fire questions. Best stadium you played in?
Best stadium, Fenerbahce.
Number one career highlight?
Number one career highlight was for sure playing for Alanya Sport. My first game back after all of the suffering that I'd been through. That was for sure. Making my debut there was amazing.
If you weren't a footballer, what would you have been?
Probably a plumber, something hands-on.
R9 or R7?
R9.
Yes. VAR, stay or go?
Go, 100%. Yeah.
Ant or deck?
Either or. I mean, and I don't even know which one is which, to be honest with you.
Apologies to one on deck. Best player you've played with?
Best player I played with? Gareth Bale.
Nice. Number one holiday destination?
St. Lucia.
Best friend in football?
Best friend in football. I want to go Andros Townsend.
Nice. And then we've heard you mention before on previous podcasts that the crazy stuff you've done, you can make a film out of your life. Who would play the lead role in that film?
Who would play it? I'm gonna go Bradley Cooper.
Yeah,
Nice.
Bradley Cooper, yeah, he's done well in The Hangover, so it'd be a good fit.
He's in recovery as well, to be fair.
He is,
Yeah. Wicked. Cheers, mate. Thank you for that.
Mate, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you coming in, and yeah, top man. Love you, bro. Top
Absolute
man.
pleasure.
Cheers, bro.
Cheers,
Good
mate.
work.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate.
Cool.
Damn.
And on deck, you've absolutely thrown me.